Welcome back to the Bigger Than Birth podcast, where we're celebrating bigger bodies and beautiful births. I'm your host, Victoria Gaba, and each week we will be bringing you the real stories of plus-size moms as they share their journey through fertility, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. These stories highlight what it's like to navigate through this experience as a woman in a bigger body in hopes of creating representation for plus-size moms, both present and future. Thank you for being part of this community as we share these stories that are so much bigger than birth. Welcome to today's show. Today we are joined by Nicky, who shares a deeply transparent look at the journey of fertility and pursuing pregnancy in a plus-size body. Nicky talks us through the details of her 4-year-long fertility journey, beginning with 3 rounds of IUIs and then leading to IVF. She shares her challenges with a low egg yield and none of the embryos unfortunately making it to day number 3. We discuss the pivotal moment they decided to move forward with donor eggs and the importance of clinic shopping to make sure you find a provider that is BMI inclusive. Nicky then gets into the story of her son's birth, an emergency 36-week C-section due to her waters breaking and a breech baby. She shares the exciting news of her current natural miracle pregnancy that defied all clinical expectations, and a brief look at their family planning moving forward. This story highlights all of the considerations of navigating a fertility journey in a plus-size body and the absolute necessity of having evidence-based and compassionate care from your supportive providers. I would like to give a quick trigger warning before we jump in. Today's episode does contain talks of pregnancy loss, so if that's not something that you are in the mindset for right now, feel free to skip this episode or come back at a later date. Now into Nicky's episode. Hi, Nicky. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to share our story.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. So I guess we'll get started by just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and where y'all are from.
Sure. So my name's Nicky. I am in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my husband, my son, who is a little over 2.5, and I am currently expecting. I'm about almost 15 weeks along. So we're very excited. I work in education. I was a teacher and now I work in like the educational technology space, which will make sense as a part of my journey that I'm going to talk about today.
Very cool. So we'll get started. So talk us through, were y'all planning to conceive your son when you did?
So it took a very long time to get our little one. So we started trying in 2019, and by the end of 2019, we just obviously weren't getting pregnant. So I talked to my OB and she said, let's run some testing. Fast forward to 2023, we were blessed with our son. After a couple rounds of IVF, we did donor eggs, and that's actually how we got our son. And then this baby is a miracle natural conception. So it's just super awesome and exciting.
That's incredible. So with the fertility journey, did they give you a time period up front when you started trying, like, hey, you have to be trying for a year before we jump to anything? Or what were they kind of looking for there?
Great question. So, this is actually something a lot of people have asked me about, and we were trying for probably 8 months. So, my doctor was like, you know what? It's been 8 months. Let's go ahead and just start doing some preliminary stuff, which I know they don't always do with women. So I'm not sure 100% why they were like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Is it my age? I'm not sure. So we ran a lot of numbers, and interestingly, it came back that my husband was the one that had some issues. In the end, it turned out here in Pittsburgh, the location that they run some of it, the sperm, he had to take it there. You don't actually go into a room. And by having to take it physically there, it killed some of the sperm and impacted the morphology. So, whenever we did go to the fertility clinic, we learned he does have some count issues, but not as severe as we had thought. So, while my OBGYN did run a lot of tests, the test that she ran on me didn't show the issues that I had. And the test that she ran on my husband showed things that weren't necessarily true. Um, while I appreciate her starting us on this journey, it did get us to where we are, and she tried her best from that point of view. But then she did recommend us to a reproductive endocrinologist.
Got it. Yeah, that's almost like a look over here kind of thing when it's like, okay, actually, you should be focusing over here.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So, how was the initial consultation with the reproductive endocrinologist?
It went fantastic. It was pre-COVID. So we went, I think, in January of 2020, and she shared with us. We did like a couple little things of testing, and my AMH was pretty low. I also have hypothyroidism, so we were taking that into consideration. My husband counts; they came back pretty decent. So she's like, "Let's try 3 rounds of IUI. If that doesn't work, we'll move to IVF." We're great. Let's go for it. So we did the IUI. Unfortunately, that didn't work. So then we moved on to IVF. And the first egg retrieval that I did, which everyone says IVF is terrible, which it totally is, but the shots aren't as bad as they make them out to be. So just a heads up, anyone in this journey, like if you're about to start your shots, they are all worth it. It's not as bad as at least in my opinion, as everyone makes them out to be. Um, but from that first egg retrieval, I'm pretty sure we got 5 eggs. Unfortunately, only like 3 fertilized, and we had none make it to day 3. And one thing I actually forgot to leave out is our appointment was pre-COVID. We ended up having to delay all of our IUIs because they did shut down for COVID, which just kind of like extended this journey even further. Eventually, like I said, we did get to go into IVF and we did the egg retrieval. Nothing made it to blast. And I was in my in laws on a Saturday and we were just waiting for the 3-day update, like, how are our embryos doing? And the doctor shared None of them none of them made it, unfortunately. So we said, "What do you think?" Like, moving on, we did our 3 IUIs, we tried egg retrieval, like, what would be our best bet? And she said donor eggs. And looking back, I wish I would have explored it a little bit more. Um, I'm not sure if it was my weight that is why she said donor eggs. Is it because of my hypothyroidism? I also have Crohn's disease. Like, I never asked her, and I kind of wish that I had asked her, and I wish that I would have tried again. Granted, I would do nothing different. Like, we have our son who I adore more than anything, as I'm sure you can like relate to. But I feel like I was pushed into a journey, which did end up working but maybe I could have given my body another shot. Um, so what we ended up doing is a donor egg round. And the first donor egg round was with frozen donor eggs, and none made it to blast. I think there were 8. So a second round of IVF, we got nowhere. We're already like $35,000 in at this point. So it's like, what do we do? Let's try another batch. Okay. So we try another batch. And from this batch, we get 2 embryos and we did the genetic testing. One was a healthy little girl, and the other was a little boy with trisomy 18. And unfortunately, our clinic will not transfer any embryos that have any abnormalities. So that embryo had to be discarded, which is a whole different ballgame of emotions that you have to deal with. I'm sure you can imagine. Um, so we did transfer the baby girl and we got pregnant, but unfortunately, it did end in a miscarriage. So we came back to the table, and we decided to do a total thyroidectomy for me because our concerns were that I had some antibodies that were attacking the embryo. So did that, and then we actually took a break and waited another year before trying again. And we ended up switching clinics. I think we had appointments with 5 different clinics and they were all virtual because again, it was still like COVID-ish times. Um, we just wanted to kind of see like what their thoughts were and like how they responded to me, my health conditions, and like what their thoughts were. So some of them don't want to work with women that have the higher BMI. So that was kind of, counted a couple of the areas out, but we did end up going with CNY in New York, which is a bit of a travel for us from Pittsburgh. Fast forward, we were still with donor eggs because that's what we thought we had to do. Like that's what our previous doctor said. And we're like, okay. So what we decided on was fresh eggs. Instead of coming in with frozen, maybe fresh will make a difference. So we found an amazing donor through CNY's donor portal, and it took a little time for us to be called onto this list. And finally we were, and we ended up getting 3 embryos. The first one that we transferred was my son. So we were successful and we are so very blessed. We have another one that we transferred after my son was born. Unfortunately, I miscarried that one. And then I got naturally pregnant. So we still have one embryo frozen. But to kind of rewind, because I know you wanted to talk about like the pregnancy and the birth of my son.
Yeah. So talk us through, I know with everything being monitored, obviously at a clinic and having implantation at certain days, everything isn't like a, oh, we're surprised, like test kind of thing. So talk us through the testing to confirm the pregnancy and kind of the emotions around finding out, like, okay, we're pregnant again, and the emotions with having a prior loss involved as well. How were you feeling through that whole process?
Yeah, great questions. So we ended up going to Albany, New York, to have our transfer, our embryo transfer. So it's about a 9 hour drive. It was a lot because that's a really long journey to travel. We decided not to do air travel because I'm in some Facebook groups and women have talked about their flights getting delayed or their luggage getting lost or their carry-ons not being allowed to be carried on because of whatever it may be. And when you're going through IVF, you have to take a lot of meds, as I'm sure everyone can imagine. So we went on our journey and at in Albany, it was a really great experience. I also did a lot of acupuncture, which I think did help relieve a lot of my stress, but also helps with the blood flow to the uterus if you haven't heard about it. Um, it was very, very anxiety inducing, but I will say the clinic that we went to was very homey. So our previous clinic, I had to go to the hospital and was literally in an OR when they did this embryo transfer. At our new clinic, you walk in and there were fuzzy couches and there was a fireplace and it was warm and cozy and the lights were dim. And that's kind of how it was whenever we went into our embryo transfer. They gave us such a calming environment with calming music in the background, which I think made a huge difference. I know they say stress technically does not affect implantation, but I'm just going to go with it. It was very, very helpful. Um, so we transferred the baby, and we made sure I just stayed still the rest of the day. I don't know if that's the best move to make, but we just hang out in the hotel, watched movies, and just tried our very best to take it as easy as we could and just, you know, laugh and giggle and embrace what we were doing. So then the next day, we drove home and I was feeling like a little bit off, like not exactly feeling my best, but I was like, that's okay. It's probably just like the anxiety because again, we knew we had gotten pregnant before. So that was one good thing. Like we knew we could get pregnant. It's just why didn't she stick around? So we came home and the next morning we go to breakfast with my in-laws and just feel off. Like something just doesn't feel right. Come home, I rested, and it turned out I have COVID.
No.
So of course that like put me into this spiral of, oh my gosh, I have COVID. This isn't going to work. We're going to have another, miscarriage. What are we going to do? We only have a couple embryos left. So that really added to the stress of the situation. Like, I don't even think my two transfers can be comparable in the aftermath because they were just totally different. Um, so eventually we did end up testing. I want to say we tested it probably 4 days and I didn't see anything. And we did this with our daughter from our first transfer as well. Like they test you at 10 days, but we test early. Many women do. Before day 4, I didn't see anything. Day 5, I saw like the world's faintest line. I'm like taking pictures and sending it to one of my friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, do you see what I see? And she's like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I see it. So we're super excited. But at the same time, I'm like, breathe. We've done this before. Like, let's just take it a day at a time. So I continued to go to my acupuncture to try to just calm myself down. And at that point in our journey, I had also really been relying heavily on my faith and just believing like God has put us here. He's going to help us get through this. And that made a huge difference in the beginning of my pregnancy and throughout because that anxiety never goes away. Even now, as a mother, that anxiety has not gone away. It's just changed its presence in your
Right. It
life.
just transfers what we're overthinking.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So for my pregnancy, we got an ultrasound at um 5 weeks to confirm the sac, and then 6 weeks we went it was like 6.5 weeks we went, and as soon as we saw a heartbeat, we were actually discharged from our fertility clinic and moved over to my OB, and again, so blessed to have such an amazing OB. They continued my medication the way that the fertility clinic recommended, all the way up through delivery. They made sure that they followed all the right protocol that our fertility clinic set forth. So it wasn't like, oh, well, I'm your OB now. You're no longer with the fertility clinic, so we're not going to do what they want. They really worked their hardest to make sure that they kind of stuck with that structure that the clinic put us on. Um, a couple of things with that is like one being on Lovenox, so that's a blood thinner. We were on that for a pretty long time. I was on oh my gosh, now I can't think of what it's called. I think it starts with a P. But basically,
Progesterone?
no. It is a medication that they give to patients whenever they get an organ transplant so that your body does not reject it. Like it's a very special immune protocol that they do. And my doctor, my OB, continued that with us to try to make sure that my body didn't end up rejecting the embryo. So it was just nice to know that I had that care continued. And to any woman who's going through this right now, I would recommend making sure you have an OB who's willing to continue that and understand the lens that you're coming from as well.
Right, because I think everyone's desired outcome should be the same at the end of
Oh,
the day.
right.
Like, we want a healthy pregnancy, but some doctors do have that ego. So I agree. Make
Yeah.
sure you have a doctor that supports the end goal that everyone's working towards. Yeah.
Exactly. And also in fertility, like a lot of the different things that we do are not necessarily FDA approved. It's kind of like cutting edge is what we're doing. So that was another piece. Like I was just really appreciative of my OB in that regard. But at the same time, she made my experience just like I felt like I was a mom. Like it wasn't just this IVF petri dish baby. I was a mom, and they had noted in our notes that this is a donor egg. So they made sure that when they were asking about like history, they were just asking for my husband's history, and then they would say, "What about the donor egg?" So it didn't make me feel uncomfortable in any way. Like you could tell they were trying to make it the smoothest experience for me, which I'm so incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, for sure. Was this the same OB that had originally started the process of testing and everything?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, that's good that you had kind of a continuity throughout the experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was also cool because one of her family members, her personal family members, was going through IVF as well. So I think that like added to her compassion and the empathy that she showed toward us.
That's great. And I was going to ask, so with being a plus size woman, were the doctors ever concerned with that? But it sounds like they were very compassionate on all fronts.
They were. I interestingly enough, I lost 15 pounds in my first trimester because I was so sick. And all of my female doctors were wonderful. They're like, you're a little overweight to begin with. It's okay. Like, it's okay. Just do what your body is doing. Like, your body will figure it out. There was one male in the practice who did not like that I was losing weight in the first trimester. He made it very clear that I should not be losing weight, that I should be gaining weight, which, dealing with like these weight fluctuations my whole entire life, like, that didn't exactly feel great either. Like it just sat wrong with me. It put this thought into my husband's head that I'm not eating enough. I'm not taking care of my baby. So it really made for some harsh dynamics. And thankfully, like at our appointment a month later, because we were still in the like 1 month, our doctor said, no, like that's such an old school way of thinking that you have to gain weight when you're pregnant. Like it's not, that's not the way it is. Between us, thank goodness that doctor has since left the practice and we don't have to worry about it. But it's hard. Like, you want to lose weight as a plus size plus size woman, and then you do, but it's when you're pregnant. Like, it just was really tough trying to figure out which way my body should be going. And of course, my body's changing. I'm getting a bigger belly. I'm trying to figure out, am I ever gonna look like a pregnant woman with, like, a cute little belly? Like, it's probably not gonna happen the way that I want it to, which is a whole different story. But I truly am so blessed that I had these other, women doctors in the practice that were encouraging and, shared that, "You know what? It's okay that this is happening, like, not once you get going a little bit more, your weight will pick up." So it did, all in a good way.
That's really good. I feel like as plus size women, I can't speak for everyone, but I know for myself, there's always been kind of a focus on weight. And then you get into the pregnancy part, and it's this weird dynamic of, okay, some doctors are very adamant, like, don't lose weight. Others are like, don't gain weight. And so it's like this balancing game of what's right. And so I think we do have to kind of internalize, obviously, listen to your doctors, but as long as I'm fueling my body healthily and, like, I'm okay.
Yeah, the baby was still developing. Like, that's our biggest thing. Like, is the baby developing? Am I still healthy? Do I still have good blood pressure? All the things. Like, look at the big picture and not just this one, what society thinks we should look like and what number should be on the scale.
Yep, exactly. So, how was the morning sickness? Did that just last in first trimester?
It got me to like 20 weeks. It was rough. The things that I could eat were Sour Patch Kids, sweet tarts, so unhealthy things. But I did also eat a lot of fruit. The fruit was great too. So I had healthy in there, but I also had some bad. But it was rough. It was a rough time. And I don't know, like with this pregnancy, I'm not as sick. Like, I'm nauseous, but I haven't thrown up. Um, but I feel like the pregnancies aren't comparable because you're on so many medications when you're on IVF. That was it the medications? I have no idea. But yeah, so it was rough, but 20 weeks, we got through it.
That's awesome. Did you have any other symptoms early on?
I was very tired, as I feel like every pregnant woman typically is. I did get like a lot of dry skin. Again, I have the hypothyroidism. Even though I got the total thyroidectomy, you still have the symptoms of hypothyroidism. And that's another thing to note, actually, for any women who do have hypothyroidism. And I know a lot of the women in my plus size groups do. Whenever you start estrogen, your thyroid is severely impacted. So, if you know that you have thyroid issues, I highly recommend working with an endocrinologist so that whenever you start on estrogen or just whenever you get pregnant in general, as your body increases estrogen, you will need to adjust your thyroid medication. So, that's just another like PSA that is huge in pregnancy. It essentially can make or break a pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And being with someone who is knowledgeable enough to kind of get that balance of both things for sure.
Yeah, because I also feel like if you just work with your PCP, they aren't always able to tailor it as specifically as you want it to. And one thing I've learned, I have found the most amazing endocrinologist is it does focus on weight as well. She does these amazing calculations and she'll be like, "Okay, how much weight have you gained?" So we just checked my TSH and she's like, "How much weight have you gained? Where are you at? Let's pull estrogen levels." And that's how we adjusted the thyroid medication. So it truly is such a science. And again, it does focus on weight, but that's why it's so important to also monitor that um, in relation to your thyroid levels.
Yeah. And it's not even a monitoring weight in like a shameful way. It's like a, hey, we
Right.
just want a healthy picture of everything going on. So that makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And my doctor, like, she doesn't make it a point of like, oh my gosh, you put on 4 pounds, it's the end of the world. Like, that's not what it's about at all.
Yep.
She's never made it feel that way. It's just, we need to make sure that you're on the right medication so that we can maintain this pregnancy.
Yeah. It's literally, let's just look at the number without attributing meaning to it, like good or bad or, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I will say, like, finding the right doctors is another like crystal clear thing that you have to do, in my opinion, to have such a great pregnancy.
Yep. And like you did with the fertility clinic, don't be afraid to shop around doctors. Like, we're about to pay
Right.
them a whole lot of money anyways, so be with someone who you do feel comfortable with.
And there's a lot of data out there too for fertility clinics that take into consideration women's BMI and the success rates that fertility clinics have. And that is available. Literally, you can just Google fertility success rates at X for this BMI or BMI above 35. I recommend that as well for sure.
So as we get into second and third trimester, we're kind of leaving the nausea away in the
Yes, thank
past.
goodness.
How did the end of your pregnancy go?
I had the best pregnancy. I don't know if it was just because we had waited so long to get to this point. It was exhausting. I frequently needed naps, which worked out because I didn't have a toddler at home at the time. It was just us going. We decided not to travel or go anywhere. We wanted to stay close in case of any emergencies. But other than that, like it was pretty basic. I had my anatomy scan. Everything looked lovely. He cooperated. All these women are like, "Oh my gosh, my baby is like cramping my ribs, crushing my soul, crushing my body." And our little guy, like, he just was like super chill and cool. Like, I lived my best life up until we had to do our stress test. So I was 30. Was I 35 at the time? I think I was 35 or 36. So I was geriatric. Gotta love it,
Old
right?
lady pregnancies.
Yes, old lady pregnancy. So I had to do like the stress test and all this stuff. Well, of course, we failed our first stress test. The nurse came in and she's like, "Oh, he needs to move a little bit more. He's not moving enough. So they have you drink water." And I'm like, "He was moving this morning." So thankfully, like my nerves were okay, knowing that I had felt him moving all morning. Um, but they were like, "You're going to have to go for a biophysical profile. If something's wrong, your original doctor, her name's Dr. Pesky, I'll put it out there. She's there today so she can deliver the baby." So my husband was on edge as crazy as could be. Actually, before I had my stress test the week prior on Thursday, I had a little bit of bleeding. So I had called my OB and they were like, "Well, go into labor and delivery and have them check you." My husband was at work. I was like, "I don't really want to call him," but I'm like, "I probably should call him." So he drove like 80 miles per hour home. We had nothing packed. I was 34 weeks at the time. When thankfully they like didn't feel anything like I wasn't dilated or anything and they didn't see any evidence of blood. So like all was well. So that was like on Thursday. Saturday, I went to a wedding. We had our best time. Monday was when I had the stress test. I had just hit 36 weeks. So yeah, 35 weeks when I had the bleeding. 36 weeks was that Sunday. And then Monday I had my stress test where they had us go for the biophysical profile. Biophysical profile, everything looked great. Baby was breech. So we're like, okay, we have 4 or 5 weeks for this baby to flip. Like we should be good. Um, all was well. They sent us home. It was great because we got to see him again. A lot of people say in IVF you get like extra monitoring. You do at the beginning, but once he hit 20 weeks, it's just the same old pregnancy as everybody else, other than you have to do like an extra heart check because there tends to be more heart issues in babies that are conceived through IVF. So other than that, it was the same as everybody else until I was geriatric. So Wednesday night, 2 days after this, we go to um our first aid class for CPR and I'm laughing. I'm like, "Oh my God, there's like other couples. Who's gonna go into labor first? Ha ha ha." Like I was being funny. 7 a.m. on Thursday, I'm laying in bed, my water breaks. Just this huge gush everywhere. And I saw this woman post the other day, "Don't believe that it's a gush. It's just a trickle." And I wanted to be like, "Sister, it was a gush for me. So trust me, it might be a gush." Like you just felt it break and it just went all over the bed, all over the floor. And it did not stop. It did not at all stop. Thankfully, my husband had not yet left for work. I had packed my baby bag after the biophysical profile. I'm like, okay, like I should probably pack it just to get ready. My husband did not. He was not thinking ahead. So we were a little bit delayed. My OB was not open yet. They don't open until 8 o'clock. So I was able to get the nurse that was like on call, and she's like, "Well, obviously you have to go to the hospital." So we went, checked in. I was leaking so much. They're like, "We don't even have to check." I guess they have like acid detectors to see if it's amniotic fluid. They're like, "Yeah, you're definitely rolling along, but I wasn't dilated. They actually couldn't even find my cervix whenever they were looking for it. So I was like, well, baby was breech on Monday. Not sure where we're at. So the doctor who I was supposed to meet that week, I had never met her before because you go through the cycle of meeting all the doctors. I was about to meet her. I'm like, well, I guess we're still meeting. She did a mini ultrasound, bedside ultrasound, and his butt was down in my pelvic area. So I did have to have an emergency C-section to make sure that we got him out because all of my fluids were just gone. He was just kind of sitting in there.
Interesting. So I didn't even realize with limited dilation that that much water could be leaking out. So that's a
Yeah.
good note because some
Yeah.
people get these checks early like 35, 36 weeks and they're not dilated or a centimeter dilated or whatnot. So just note that your
Yeah.
water can still
Oh,
break.
yes, it can. Oh, it
Yep.
definitely did. It was interesting to say the
Yeah.
least.
So once they determined, like, hey, this is amniotic fluid, we are going to move forward since you aren't dilated, was it like a very rushed type of emergency C section?
It wasn't crazy rushed. Between the time that my water broke and my son was born, it was 3 hours. So they did work fast, but it wasn't like, I don't think that he was in crazy distress, that they were just running around like maniacs. It was a very short labor. I felt no labor symptoms other than my water breaking. So part of me feels like I missed out. I know some women are like, you didn't miss out on anything, but I think that's another like issue that we have in society is this thought that women who have C-sections didn't deliver their baby or they didn't birth their baby, which I did. But, me as a woman, people are like, oh, well, you're a plus size woman. That's why you got a C-section. And no, you didn't deliver your baby. You went the easy way out, which that
The
wasn't,
easy way.
and it wasn't the case at all. Like I was fully prepared for that peanut ball. Like I was ready. But I had no other option. Like my baby was breech. His butt was right there when they pulled him out during the C-section. He came out butt first. So there was no getting out of this. It just wasn't because once your water breaks, they also can't turn the baby.
Right.
So
Yeah, because
yeah,
there's
we were
not
just kind
even room for him to move around in the fluid. There's nowhere to go. So because it was deemed an emergency C-section, were you able to still get like a spinal block or did they have to do general anesthesia?
No, I got a spinal block, so I was awake for it all. I will say, like, I definitely got the nausea that some women get during, the receiving of those medications. You still get the shakes, which I think is from the adrenaline. It was rough because I didn't get to do the golden hour like I wanted to, and my husband didn't get to cut the cord. So, like, we didn't go in having a birthing plan at all. But I knew that I wanted the golden hour and I wanted my husband to cut the cord. And both of those things went out the window. But honestly, like hearing your baby cry, like those thoughts kind of escape as well. So my husband was the first one to actually hold the baby. And they sent him out of the room with the baby while they closed me up and everything. And it was horrible because, you can't move. You physically can't move. And they're like, okay, we're going to move you. And being a plus size woman, I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't move me. Like, I'm too heavy. You can't move me from this bed to this bed. And that was a worry that was going through my head. And looking back, I'm like, why in the world was I worried about that? Like, of all things to be worried about, that's not what I should have been worried about. Like,
Right.
you literally just had your organs pulled out of you and like placed on a table. I don't know if that's actually how it happened, but that's how I envision it happening. And then they close you up and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. I have extra weight on me. Like, I'm sorry I'm making your life difficult. Like, that's not what we should be thinking about. Like, why does society instill that in us?
Yeah.
So,
And I think we are probably thinking about that, and those doctors probably didn't think twice about it.
no. No, I don't
Yep.
think they did at all. And you know what? The other thing that I was thinking of is I remember, so I had my doctor that was the one who like did the bedside ultrasound and all that right before my C-section. And then she had another doctor come in as like her helper. And I remember her saying, "Here's her belly button in case you don't know where it is." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so fat. They can't find my belly button." Like, of course she can find my belly button. My belly button was literally under the paper that they use. That's why she had to tell her where my belly button was. Like, the things we think of, but I was, like,
Yep.
worried that my belly was just so big because 'cause I'm so chubby, she couldn't find my damn belly button.
Okay, if a doctor cannot find a belly button, they need to change professions. Like, that's
Truth. But, like, these are the things we worry about, and, like, looking back, I'm like, "Why in the moment was I so worried about my belly button?" Like, but again, like, society places these pressures on us, like, we're making life more difficult for the doctors or for the nurses that have to move us to another bed, and deep down, they don't care. So but again, I just had such a good care team that they were great throughout the whole thing.
so were they able to bring the baby to you to see a little bit before he went with your husband?
I got a really quick glance. The doctor came over and was like, "I hope you have preemie clothes." And I'm like, "Nope, I don't have preemie clothes." Like I wasn't prepared for that. But then they did take him away. So I saw him for a really quick second. But the anesthesiologist was wonderful. He grabbed my husband's phone, snapped some pictures of us during this whole entire process. So I do have some good pictures of it. And then they wrapped me up. Um, by wrapped me up, I mean like wrapped up the C-section. And then they took me into recovery where they just put the baby on me and was like, go ahead and find the boob. And how do babies know where to go right away? I'm not quite sure, but he did.
That's awesome. So he didn't have any troubles, like, latching right away? It was just like a, "I'm here, mom."
Well, we definitely had some trouble. He found it, but I ended up doing like breastfed and fed combo. I wasn't producing a ton of milk, so it was that piece of it. I don't think it was a him latching thing, but I did have to wear a nipple guard, a nipple shield to like get him to latch at the beginning, and then probably around 4 or 5 weeks, he latched on without it, and it was the most amazing moment ever imaginable.
That's super special, especially when you've been trying, like, breastfeeding is not for the faint of heart, and so if you
It
are
is not.
sticking with it, and then that moment is definitely a
Yeah.
victory.
Yeah, but, we were I it was fed as best. Like, I pumped, I did all the things, but I just didn't make enough, so we did the supplement. My son actually ended up in the NICU at our hospital, which was only a level 2 NICU, and he had to get transferred to the local children's hospital, which had a level 4 NICU, because his DSATs kept dropping. So add that into your recovery. Thank God it was only 10 days. I know some moms go through so much worse. But that definitely, I think, made my recovery go faster because I forced myself to get up out of bed and go down to the nursery and go see him. Um, but one thing a nurse said to me that still kind of bothers me to this day, and I'll tell you why it still bothers me, is I have an apron belly, but it wasn't really like a super hangy apron belly until I had my C section because of where they have to cut the muscle. And she came over, and my family was in the room and she was doing her check. And she holds up my stomach and she's like, "Well, to take care of this, you're going to have to lift your belly up and go get a hair dryer and blow the hair dryer on your C-section scar." And I'm like, "This is so embarrassing. My whole family is right here. And you're telling me I have to hold up my belly." Like, that just really bothered me. So if any nurses are listening, like maybe be cautious of that as well, because we already, as you heard from during the C-section to after, um, it's a lot to take in. And like that was a shift that my body went through as well. Like now I have more of a hanging like shelf apron belly.
Yeah. And regardless of if that was good advice, because I've heard that advice from many people with apron bellies, I think it's the delivery and the situation. Like, maybe
Exactly.
tell me directly. Like, I can appreciate that. But yeah, I definitely get what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. But otherwise it was great.
So, were you still in the hospital when they decided that they were going to transfer him to a different NICU, or had you been released?
So I had been discharged, but our hospital has, I forget what they call it, but I was allowed to stay in my hospital room. They no longer brought meals or anything like that, but I could stay there. I think it was called like a nursing or a nesting room. And then he wasn't getting better. And then the one night, um, he completely like got non-responsive for about 15 minutes and they had to put him on oxygen and they were like, "Okay, we're going to transfer him." So, in the process of like waiting for the ambulance to arrive, they put him on steroids, they put him on antibiotics, all the things. Just horrible. horrible things. And again, you just got to pull yourself together and go through it. So we were not allowed to ride in the ambulance. We had to drive separately. So we went back, packed up our room, headed down, and at the children's hospital somehow we were blessed to be in the room with our son. So some of the rooms are shared rooms. We had our own room that had a shower, so like I could shower. The hospital brought all the stuff that I needed for breastfeeding. They took my pumped stuff. They had a refrigerator for it. Like it was, they were
That's
just
great.
wonderful. And honestly, like I feel like it was great that he got transferred because the care was different. Not saying it was better, but they had more knowledge and more resources than the level 2 nursery.
For sure.
So like as you're looking at places you're going to deliver, also look at like what kind of NICU do they have? Do they have a NICU? What level NICU do they have?
Yeah, and especially if I know you didn't really have any concerns initially that he was gonna come early or anything, but if people do have conditions that there is a better chance of delivering early, then definitely take into consideration the NICU piece.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is great though that they had the room that you could stay. So was there a bed you actually slept at the NICU with them, or did you have to go back
So
and forth?
we stayed the whole entire time he was there. I slept on a chair because I was having issues with swelling in my feet. So I was able to have my feet lifted up more. They did have like a pull out couch, but it was just like flat-ish, no cushion to it. So my husband actually just slept on the couch because it was cushiony. So although it wasn't like a luxury hotel, we still had somewhere to be that we were with him 24/7 because at the hospital where I delivered, he was away from me. I had to go down, but they also would tell me, "You need to go back to your room. You need to rest. You can't be here the whole time," which I mean, legit is the smartest thing that they could have told me to do. But having the room where I'm able to be in there with him was great because I could get my rest and also be there
Yeah,
for him.
absolutely. That is a great if you have to have a NICU situation, I know it's not good on any front, but that's a great experience to
Yeah.
have.
It was
So
it was great.
so what were they looking as far as just his breathing levels, or what were they concerned with once he was transferred to that other NICU?
Yeah. So actually the first 2 days he was with us and he was not in the like a day and a half, probably 36 hours. He was with us and not in the NICU. He failed the car seat test at our hospital, and that hospital is very stringent on their car seat test. So his DSAT levels kept dropping, which means that if they drop below, I think it's hard for me to remember, but maybe like 93, that means that like he DSAT. So every time that you DSAT, it resets the clock, and you need to go 5 days without a DSAT. So every day he would have one and our clock would reset. And I'm like, am I ever getting out of here? So then we went to Children's Hospital and they actually put the monitor on him in a different location. And their level was a little bit different. Like he could DSAT for like a second, but if it wasn't over a minute, it didn't count. So we actually only ended up being there for 3 days because they were evaluating it in a different way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think at least that gave you some clarity of it's not going to be an additional 5 days every single time. That just feels
Right.
like daunting.
Yeah. But they did do like a lot of tests on him to see, well, why are his DSAT levels? Like, why is this happening? They were like, it's probably because he's underdeveloped. His lungs just aren't where they need to be because he was 5 pounds, 8 ounces. So he was a little guy. But they did do put him on steroids, put him on more antibiotics. They came in and they did lot of x-rays. They had him on oxygen for a while. And then they slowly wean him off of all of it.
Once he got through all of that, talk us through the early days, finding out that you can get released from the NICU and then bringing him home for the first time.
So they do rounds every morning where the doctors come around and they talk about things that are happening. And for 2 days, they said, I think we're going to move you to the next level. So we were in the NICU and they were like, we can move you to, I don't know what the level is that's after that. So we're like, okay, so we're going to keep staying. Like, okay. Because the nurses were like, they could tell we were anxious and they're like, this is the healthiest baby that we have on this floor right now. So, one, my heart breaks for all those other babies, but my heart feels so happy to know that my baby was also the healthiest baby. So yeah, they kept saying that they're going to move us because, again, we were taking up a room. And then all of a sudden on Sunday, it was Father's Day. They were like, you know what? You're going to go home. And we were just like, oh my gosh, like we actually get to go home. This is crazy. So we had to bring up our seat and he did the test. He did great. They also had us do another CPR class. I guess if you go to a children's hospital with a baby, you are required to do a CPR test, or a CPR training, even if you've already completed one before. So it was cool to do that. But oh, it was wonderful to be able to leave. Thankfully, I did have my mom drop off some preemie clothes for him to fit into because the outfit that I had for him for going home was newborn, and he was swimming in preemie outfits. So it was so fun and so exciting to be able to be like, oh my gosh, this has ended. Like, and it ended on a day when we didn't think it was going to end, but they were like, yeah, he's healthy. Like, get out of here.
That's so special, like, the best Father's Day present, like, here's
Right?
actually your baby.
Yeah, exactly. So 10 days after my 3-hour labor and delivery, we finally got to come home.
And how was that? How were the first few days home with the new baby and you're recovering still, obviously?
Good. I think that I don't really remember my recovery. That may sound crazy, but like I just don't. And I think I don't know. I think the NICU time and just all the things. But here's the other thing. I don't remember the first 3 to 4 months of caring for him. Like, I know I was there. I know I cared for him, but it's just like all such a blur. Like, I remember the time of my water breaking. I remember being on the table, but then like coming home and taking care of my son. I'm like, I don't remember. I don't remember. It's crazy. I was very lucky. I had 3 months of maternity leave that I was able to use. So 12 weeks. So I was home with him and all the things, but man, I don't remember most of it. I do remember my incision getting super itchy. I don't know if you had the same thing, like crazy itchy, and I was so worried that something wasn't right. But again, my postpartum, I think my biggest issue was just seeing my body no longer having a baby in it. My belly being bigger. I had only gained, so like after I lost the 15 pounds from my starting weight, I had only gained 13 pounds. So 13 plus 15, technically I gained 28, but I like to just say I only gained 13. But like my body shifted, my belly was more hangy than it had been before, which was a big shift. And society wants you to pop back right away. And I did not pop back. I still haven't popped back, and that's okay. It's totally fine. I did go for walks. I was exercising by taking my baby outside. It was summer. So I was able to do that. But I think that is one of the hardest parts postpartum is being okay. Like your body just made that little baby, and it is no longer about you. You are taking care of that little baby, and you're doing an amazing job.
Yep. And the fact that your body just went through a major, major abdominal surgery, but then pregnancy, your body just went through all of the hormones. Like postpartum in itself is just a crazy time period because it is. It's like you're
Right.
learning your new body, you're learning and stepping into a whole new way of life with this little baby and figuring them out. And so, yeah, it's a lot at any
No,
given
without
time.
a doubt, without a doubt,
Yeah.
and I think I read somewhere, I can't give you the resource that I read it because I read it somewhere. It takes 2 years, I believe, for your hormones to actually get back to normal. Um, my postpartum, I feel like went decent other than, like, my concerns, but I was also on anxiety medication prior to getting pregnant because obviously you're going through a fertility journey, like, it's crazy, and I think being on that anxiety medication throughout my pregnancy and then also postpartum really helped to level me out as well. There are a lot of anxiety meds that are okay during pregnancy and also okay during your breastfeeding journey too, so for any moms that are worried about that, like, you can still do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to take priority in your mental health, because if you're worried or anxious to a point of not being able to function, that's not good for anybody in this situation, whether
Exactly.
that's prenatal anxiety or postpartum anxiety, depression, whatever it may be. Definitely take account of your mental health and prioritize that.
A bajillion percent.
Yep, and it's so easy as moms to put that on the back burner. So,
Yeah.
everyone, please make sure you're taking account of what's going on with
Yeah.
your mental state.
Always prioritize that for
Yep.
sure.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Well, yeah, Nikki, so I mean, it's amazing. Your little boy is such a stinking cutie, like,
Oh, thank
so
you.
cute.
Thank you.
And that congratulations on getting pregnant. So, I know obviously we won't get into that, but was this a complete surprise, right?
It was a complete surprise. So I had to wait a year after my C-section before they would transfer another baby because of the concerns of the scars that are still internal in your uterus, and they don't want the embryo attaching to that, which I guess they're attracted to the scars. I don't know why. So this time we went to Buffalo to do the embryo transfer. No, we went to Albany again. We drove 9 hours to Albany, took my mother-in-law and took our baby who was 1 year old at the time. And unfortunately that transfer did not work. So, ladies, it may not work, and that's okay. But eventually, hopefully, it will work. It just may not be the way that you think it's going to be. So, for this one, we actually were planning on transferring this summer. I had gone on Zepbound because I was like, okay, if we're going to put we had already spent $85,000. If we're going to put more into this, like, I'm spending the money, I'm going on Zepbound, we're going to lose weight, we're going to figure this out. I was on Zepbound for 1 month. All my doctors said, use protection. And I'm like, I don't need to use protection. I couldn't get pregnant, period. And then I ended up getting pregnant. Um, and here we are. And they were like, thank God you were only on it for 4 weeks. Like I was on the lowest dose imaginable.
Yeah.
So it did work out, but I was like, oh my gosh, of course this happens. And it's crazy because it is such a different experience. One thing that I'm struggling with currently is, I went and we had our first ultrasound, which they weren't sure if they saw a gestational sac. So I had to go back a week later. We saw the sac, we saw a baby. Um, and then a couple weeks ago, I was at my 12-week appointment. They weren't able to find the heartbeat with the Doppler. The nurse couldn't, the doctor couldn't. So, of course, your anxiety goes crazy. So they brought
Course.
in a bedside ultrasound and I had to hold my belly up and my husband was there and I was so embarrassed. So that's currently like where I am, struggling a little bit with that, but also knowing my body is growing a little baby. It's all okay. It'll be great. But I'm looking at like different things that I can wear to like round out my belly some. So again, it's just a totally different experience. And I need to keep reflecting on my first experience. Like those things don't matter. They don't matter. What matters is my body healthy? Is my baby healthy? And
Yeah.
that's the truth.
Absolutely. And I think the lessons learned will carry through as well. Like maybe the thoughts automatically come to us, but we can be like, nope, you know what? I'm not letting my brain take control of that thought. And
Right.
we're celebrating that I got pregnant again and that we're
Yeah.
growing a healthy baby. So that's
Yeah. How
awesome.
crazy though. Like that's why I go back and I'm like, did we really need to do the donor eggs? Like, did we need to do that?
Right.
Um, but one thing like I've seen a lot of girls in our groups talk about is after you have a C-section, if you are plus size, you cannot do a VBAC. My doctor said I could do a VBAC if I want to do a VBAC. So again, this group that I think I just found the jackpot with a great group of doctors, they are totally open for me doing a VBAC. So, ladies, don't ever let a doctor tell you that you can't do something, unless, of course, there's like a legit medical reason why it's not going to be a smart choice. In that instance, it's different. But don't let it be you're heavy, you can't do it. Like it's not an excuse anymore. Like
Yeah.
they can't say it.
So do you think you're going to go try for the VBAC?
I don't know. So I have spinal stenosis. And like in December, I had a week during like at the beginning of my pregnancy where I could barely function because my back hurt so bad. So me and my husband are going back and forth. Like it's a part of labor that I feel like I missed out on. But if I mess up my back, I have a toddler who will be 3 and having an infant, and we're also building a house. So all of those things at once, we're like, is it smarter to just cut my losses, have a C-section. Yes, I know recovery is still very tough. Like you are literally cut open. So we're kind of like going back and forth about what we want to do. We have time.
Yeah,
We have
you have
time.
time. And then hopefully
Exactly.
in several more months to come, I'll get you back on here again and you'll tell us all about baby number two story.
Well, we'll see, but yeah, we're still just in shock. Like, don't ever let anyone tell you that just because you are plus size or because you have a health condition that you're not going to get pregnant. It's just absolutely crazy. You can, and I'm evidence of it. And my girlfriend, she also went through IVF. She got pregnant naturally the first time, went through secondary infertility, and they were on a list for adoption, and she just got pregnant naturally. So
Yep.
it
So it can happen.
happens.
Yep.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, I feel
So,
like that
yeah.
happens not I don't know frequently, but I feel like that happens a lot where you do go through this fertility process and then the second baby or whatever consecutive baby that is, it's like surprise.
Yeah, it's like your body just needs the like, "Hey, this is how you do it. You can do it." And then, you go on and you do it. So, we do still have one embryo because people are like, "We're having a baby boy." And you just saw on Facebook, everyone's like, "Well, what was the girl name you picked?" I'm like, that doesn't mean we're stopping at 2. Like, don't put this on me. Like, we still have an embryo that's frozen, and we proved that we can do this naturally.
Mhm.
Just saying, this is not necessarily the end for us with
Yeah.
our baby journey.
That's so exciting, Nikki. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being so open about your fertility journey and then all through pregnancy and birth. We really appreciate you just being open and being a resource for people that might be going through something similar or have gone through something similar that can relate to. So I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Just thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. If you enjoyed this episode and want more stories just like this one, please be sure to like and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you have a moment, please consider leaving us a positive review wherever you're listening to this show. These reviews are the best way for the algorithm to push out our show and get us in front of other plus-size moms who may be looking for a community like this one. Your kind words can help make sure that no one has to go through this journey alone. If you are a fellow plus-size mom and would be interested in sharing your story, please reach out to us at biggerthanbirthpodcast@gmail.com. Use the subject line, "Share My Story," and I will be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Want to put a face to a voice? Head over to any of our social media pages linked in the show notes below to see more photos of today's guest. Any resources or topics discussed in today's episodes will also be linked below. Thanks again for being a part of the Bigger Than Birth community, and we will see you next week. Bye!